Welcome, everybody. I am excited to study with you today. I'm Rabbi Micah Streiffer, and today I wanted to explore with you a story that I always think of at this time of year, and I'll tell you in a minute why. But let's start with our blessing for study. So please mute yourself if you feel comfortable, and let's join together in our blessing for study so that we can begin to study together. Please join me. Baruch atah
Ata
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu melech
Eloheinu melech
haolam
haolam
asher
asher
kiddushanu
kiddushanu b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
v'tzivanu
la'asok
asok
divrei Torah.
Torah.
Blessed is the Eternal, whose mitzvot, whose commandments make us holy, and who commands us to immerse, to engage in words of Torah. If you haven't already, please use the chat to tell us who you are and where you are. I already see that we've got lots of people from all over, including, wow, Alaska. Sounds great, Sabrina. Hope you're enjoying. Okay. This story, and today the text that I want to study with you is a story. I don't know where I learned it, to be honest with you. It's one of these that I sort of feel like I learned from rabbis telling stories. And then I came across a version of it in a text, and a text actually from Martin Buber. Martin Buber is the great 20th century philosopher, early 20th century philosopher. He was born in Germany and ultimately lived the latter part of his life in Israel, moved to Palestine in the 30s when the Nazis came to power in Germany, and then taught at the Hebrew University. He's known for his philosophy or his theology of dialectic, the idea of I and thou, that God resides in our I-thou relationships. That's not really what this story is about, but it's good to have that in mind as background in terms of why Buber might have been interested in this story. I'll also say that the other thing Martin Buber was interested in, I'll just put his name in the chat in case folks haven't heard of him. The other thing Martin Buber was interested in was Hasidic Judaism. His theology, his I-thou theology, comes to him by way of Hasidic Judaism, and he also was a great cataloger and collector of Hasidic stories. There are volumes of Hasidic stories that Buber collected and redacted and transcribed because, of course, he learned these stories from people telling stories. And so he wrote them down and put them into volumes that are called things like Legends of the Baal Shem or the stories of the Hasidim, early masters and later masters. This is one of those Hasidic stories that Buber found and transcribed and maybe even a little bit rewrote. And we'll see that the version that Buber tells is not the only possible version of the story. So I want to read the story, and then I want to invite us to react to the story. And then actually we're going to see that this is not the only version of this story, and we'll ask what the different variations mean. And along the way, hopefully we'll find a little hope in the story that is being told here. So, can everybody see my screen? It says hope for the journey. Excellent. This story comes up for me this time of year because it is a story about a journey, and I feel like often at this time of year people are going away, they're traveling, programming is ending, we're saying see you in a month or something like that. So this feels like that, a story about a journey that is appropriate for this time of journeys. Buber calls it Here Where One Stands. And here's the story he tells. Rabbi Bunam, who's one of the Hasidic masters, one of the Hasidic rabbis, used to tell young men who came to him for the first time, meaning came to him to learn from him, came to him to learn how to be a Hasid. He used to tell them the story of Rabbi Isaac, son of Rabbi Yekel of Krakow. After many years of great poverty which had never shaken his faith in God, he dreamed someone bade him look for a treasure in Prague, under the bridge which leads to the king's palace. Is this story familiar to anybody? I see some nods and some shakes. Okay, so Rabbi Isaac lives in lives in Krakow, and has this dream that he should go look for a treasure under the bridge in Prague. Anybody know? I did not look this up ahead of time. Does anybody know how far it is from Krakow to Prague? By the way, some versions of this story, it's like Minsk to Pinsk, but these are actual places. Yeah, Bob?
300 or 400 miles.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, these days you could drive it in less than a day. Um, in those days, it was farther. Minsk and Pinsk are real places too. I don't mean to make it sound like Minsk and Pinsk aren't real places. Either way, he's sitting in Krakow and he has a dream that he should go to Prague. Because if he goes to Prague and looks under the bridge that leads to the king's palace, he will find there a treasure. Now, what are you going to do if you have a dream like this? Probably ignore it, right? Because it was a dream. If you every night you had a dream and you went traipsing off after whatever your dream said, you'd be traipsing all over the place every day, right? So Reb Isaac does what a reasonable person does. Nothing. He wakes up the next morning and goes about his daily business, except he has the dream again and again. And when the dream recurred a third time, Rabbi Isaac prepared for the journey and set out for Prague. The bridge was guarded day and night, and he did not dare to start digging. Nevertheless, he went to the bridge every morning and kept walking around it until evening. Just picture him walking over the bridge, back and back and forth over this bridge. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's mulling. Maybe he's waiting for his opportunity to jump under the bridge and start digging. Maybe he's trying to work up the nerve. Maybe he's hoping that some opportunity will present itself. Who knows what he's doing? Finally, the captain of the guards, who had been watching him, asked in a kindly way whether he was looking for something or waiting for somebody. Rabbi Isaac told him about the dream that he had brought here from a faraway country. The captain laughed. And so, to please a dream, you poor fellow wore out your shoes to get here? I love that line. You wore out your shoes after a dream? Shoes are expensive in this world, right? After a dream, you're gonna wear out your shoes? He says, as for having faith in dreams, if I had it, I should have to get going when a dream came to me. When a dream once told me to go to Krakow and dig for treasure under the stove in a room of a Jew named Isaac, son of Yekel. That was the name, he says, Isaac, son of Yekel. I can just imagine what it would be like, how I should try to have to try every house over there, where half the Jews are named Isaac and the other half are named Yekel. And he laughed again. Rabbi Isaac bowed, traveling home, dug up the treasure from under the stove, and built the house of prayer, which is called Reb Isaac Ben. That should be Reb Isaac Ben Reb Yekel's shul. Now, I don't know if there's really a shul in Krakow called Reb Isaac Ben Reb Yekel's shul, but maybe there is. And if so, this is the origin story of the shul in Krakow that's named after Reb Isaac Ben Reb Yekel. And Buber adds a little subscript. He says, take this story to heart. Reb Bunam used to add, used to add, and make it your own. There is something you cannot find anywhere in the world, not even at the tzaddik. The tzaddik is your Hasidic Rebbe. Tzaddik is your teacher, right? There's something you can't find anywhere in the world, not even at the tzaddiks. And there is nevertheless a place where you can find it. So let me pause here. I have more to say, but let me pause here and invite your reactions to the story. What do you suppose the story is trying to teach us? What do you think? What do you think about Reb Yekel? What's his name? Reb Isaac Ben Yekel? What do we take away? Anybody want to unmute and sort of respond to or react to the story? What are you taking away from this story? I see Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
The fabulous part of this, I think, is you might call it intentional misdirection of that original set of dreams. I mean, would Reb Isaac have been less likely to look under his stove or whatever it was if he had had a dream telling him to look under his stove? Would he have needed to have that 3 times? I mean, what was the reason to put the whole trip to Prague in there?
Right.
Although
It's
I
not,
must say, going to Prague is kind of nice. I've been there.
I'm sure, yeah, it might be nicer now than it was in the 18th century when Rabbi Isaac was having this dream.
I think it's the same.
It might be. You make a very interesting point, Bob. This is not a very efficient dream, is it? The efficient way would have been to have him to have a dream about digging in his own house or whatever it was under his table, under his stove. I've heard different versions of this story as well, under the table, under the stove. In this one, it's the stove. That would have been the more efficient way, right? And the message might have been the same. The treasure is waiting for you right here at home, which of course raises the question, why does he have to travel all the way to Prague? What's the point of the traveling in order to just come home and find the treasure right here in his own home? Aviva and Yehuda, please
It reminds me of Lo Bashamayim Hi.
tell us
Looking
more. What
across,
does that mean, and why does it remind
well,
you of it?
from Parashat Nitzavim in Deuteronomy, Lo Bashamayim Hi. It is not in the heavens what you are looking for. It is not across the sea. Don't go looking there. Don't go looking there.
It's
It's
under
right
your
here.
stove.
It's right here
Hmm.
under under your stove, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, that's from the book of Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses is telling the Israelites that the law or connection with the divine, or the rabbis, excuse me, will interpret this as Torah. Where is Torah? And he says it is not over the sea. It's not in the heavens, lo bashamayim hi. It's not far away that you should have to send somebody to go get it and bring it back to you. When when Moses makes that point in Torah, some of what Moses is saying is that access to the divine, access to God, is not too difficult. It doesn't belong to only a few. You shouldn't have to send a priest across the sea or send a prophet up into the heavens. You can access it right here in your own heart. And by the way, and Aviva might know this as well, and some of you might know this, that the rabbis seize on that story as being essentially their authorization to build Judaism as we know it. How do Jews make decisions? How do we make meaning in the Jewish world? Not by voices from heaven, but rather right here on earth, building communities and arguing about what things mean. This is such a source of hope, right? Meaning is ultimately made in community, in the space between people. I want to go to Carrie, who hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll go back to Bob.
I wanted to say that Loba Shemayim, he's also in the ovens of Achnai story where the two rabbis were debating. But the going away far and coming back home, it kind of reminds me of like you have a high school sweetheart, but then you go off the world looking for the most beautiful woman and you come back home and marry her. I think.
Yeah, it is that sort of that very romantic story about where we find what we need. It was always right here, even though you went off traipsing around the world to try to find it. Bob, what's your take?
The person who gets cut out of things in this story, I would be tempted to say, gypped, is the guard on the bridge in Prague. I mean, he had a dream as well, and he was cut out of any of the benefit of it. I mean, Rev Isaac didn't say anything to him, did he?
No, he did not. He shut his mouth as soon as he heard that dream, right? And there's a message there, though. The message there is something like, don't be afraid to follow your dreams. I actually want to show you. That's a nice segue into something else I wanted to show you, which is that there are different versions of this story. So first of all, I found this online. This is Reb Isaac on the bridge, right? And I assume this is Reb Isaac here, and there's a man digging under the bridge. I thought that was a neat image of this story. This story turns out to be quite old. Oh, actually, I see one more hand up. Aviva and Yehuda, I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll move on to this next version of the story.
I consider that this also has always been an admonishment. No excuses. Don't be looking all over the place when it's right there in front of you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, right? Looking, although in some ways the story says go looking all over the place, but know that it is right in front of you. And so maybe, I don't know, then, do we need the looking? Is the looking, there's something here about finding it in front of you, but possibly needing to have done the looking in order to find what's right in front of us. Um, so let me
Famous
show you.
shorts. I'm
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead,
There's
Yehuda,
a
please.
famous short story, Appointment at Samara, by John O'Hara, where a man hears that death is coming for him. So he runs to Samara and runs into Death. And Death says, "Oh, I'm so surprised to see you here. We had an appointment." That's a
Yeah.
really, we studied that in school when I was a boy.
Yeah, it's like the story of the man who climbs the mountain looking for God, and then the birds come and his family comes, and the skies are filled with the rainbows, and he shoos it all away because he's waiting for God, and he doesn't realize that he was finding God. Um, so this story turns out to be quite old. The version we have in front of us is Hasidic. It's actually Martin Buber's version of a Hasidic story. As we'll see in a moment, it's not exactly necessarily the Hasidic story, but the story is much older than that, and it's not only Jewish. What you have here in front of you, which we're not going to read all of, comes from medieval German storyteller named Johannes Agricola, who tells this story here. The dream, the bridge is in Regensburg, right? This is not a Jewish version of the story. The man travels to Regensburg from wherever, we don't know where he is, but when he gets there, the message he is given by the merchant who tells him his own dream, it's not a guard, it's a merchant in this version of the story, is dreams are lies. So some of the message of this version of the story is believe in your dreams. Dreams are not lies. Dreams reveal something to us, whether it's the will of God, if you believe such a thing, or perhaps our own will, or something about what we need psychologically in the world. Our dreams are not to be ignored, says this ancient or, medieval version of the story. Our dreams are actually to be looked at, to be listened to. Yeah, Bob, please.
You have set this up by talking about a summer vacation. And in a way, this travel that sends you back to where you started from is part of that same thing. And it makes me think of a more modern version in the story of Gustav Mahler, the composer, written by, I forget his name, very psychoanalytic kind of a biography in which Mahler actually went to the French coast to meet up with Freud while he was on vacation and walked around the park with Freud, who didn't want to break his normal vacation activity, and told his whole story to him as to whether his wife was being faithful or not.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, there's so many versions of this. It is such a trope, the idea that you have to go far in order to find what's near. I want to show you two other, or just sort of some of the differences with two other versions of this story and ask us how it is that we received the version we received. So we looked at the German version here from Agricola. This is now a Persian version of the same story, 19th century Persian version of the story. In this case, the man sits in Baghdad. He is in great distress. And remember, that was not in our Hasidic version. It did not say this man was in great distress. Here it is. The dream sends him to Egypt from Baghdad, which, as we know, is also a very long way, maybe longer than Krakow to Prague. And when he gets there, he falls into the hands of the patrol, who arrested him and beat him severely. This is very different from the version of the story we had, which said that the guard asked him in a kindly way whether he was looking for something. And I wondered, if we could talk for a moment about how that changes the story. Why would a given storyteller have told this story about a man in great distress, a man being beaten, versus a man who is spoken to in a kindly way by this foreign guard? Does it change the story one way or another for you when we tell it, when it's told that way? And I don't know if that brings up anything, but if it does, I wanted to give us a chance to respond to it. I see Bruce, please.
Well, to me, it suggests that in Persia, dreamers are looked on with suspicion, and dreams are quite costly when you pursue them. That there's a way in which this story is recommending to the reader that you not follow your dreams, that dreams are untrustworthy, and if you do follow them, you'll be severely punished.
But I didn't
And
tell the, sorry, I should have clarified that at the end, he does, the same thing happens. He does get the treasure in the end. It's just that he's beaten up along the way. So I see your point, Bruce, like that this is a dangerous journey, right? In the first one, it's in the Buber version, it's an inconvenient journey. In this Baghdad version, this Persian version, it's an extremely dangerous undertaking, and in some ways, the treasure is the recompense for his having being beaten or something like that, and for his having believed in the dream to begin with. Yeah, Bob, please.
There's a Jewish principle of being kind to strangers, and that even applied in the Buber version when the person being kind was a random palace guard.
Right, I know that guard was behaving so hospitably, right? It's a very, I suppose, a very, very Jewish story. By the way, the version of the story I know, the guard is not so kind. The guard seizes him by the collar and says, "You Jew, what are you doing here digging under this bridge?" I don't know who changed that or when, but it does make it a different story if he puts himself in danger in order to follow his dreams. One more variation of the story. This is from Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. So this is obviously a Jewish version, right? Where now in the 18th century in the Hasidic world, for all we know, this is where Buber got it. Buber never met Rabbi Nachman, but perhaps Buber heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from Rabbi Nachman. In Rabbi Nachman's version, the soldier, first of all, the soldier says to him, "Oh, you Jew," giving consideration to dreams. So now this becomes about Jewish identity in a way, right? That the Jewish man follows his dreams. And then furthermore, now he's going to Vienna. The places have changed. But look at Rabbi Nachman's postscript. He says, "Now I know the treasure is by me." And the word by here is the Yiddish by. I don't know if any of you are Yiddish speakers, but the word by in Yiddish means here in my home. So sometimes you'll hear people say, "I spent Shabbos by Moishi," or like something like that. In other words, I was in the home of. By means with somebody or with them. So he says the treasure is by me, right? The treasure is right here in my own space. But in order for me to know of the treasure, it was necessary to travel to Vienna. So that speaks to the question that Bob asked earlier, and that maybe Yehuda was hinting at as well. Why the travel? Why couldn't he just dig under his own stove and find the treasure? And the answer, according to Rabbi Nachman, is that actually we need the journey in order to know that that we have the treasure right here. And then he adds, so it is in the matter of serving Hashem, that the treasure is each one by himself. But in order to know of the treasure, it is incumbent to travel to the tzaddik. Go out and learn, as Hillel says, zil gmor. Go out and find yourself a teacher. Go out and learn. Go out and experience the world. Go out and find the wisdom and knowledge there is to find. It's interesting. Rabbi Nachman here is not afraid of us going away to learn. You have to go out to find the tzaddik. You have to go out to find the sources of knowledge, and yet you will discover that the treasure was right here at home all the time. Sarah hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll go to Carrie.
For me, there's some echo of first Lech Lecha, and that we're supposed to go out seeking, journeying, traveling, just like our people have done for generations and generations, seeking our home. And there's something about what you just said, which took me to Hamakom, that the place is God and how we value treasure, all kinds of echoes of, we're given Torah. Do we accept it? Do we recognize it? Do we live it? Are we walking Torah? Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. This idea that, hamakom, just to make sure everybody knows the language that Sarah was using, hamakom means literally the place, and it is a name for God. God is found in whatever place we are in. In whatever way we understand God, think about God, right? God is found in the places where we are. And Buber suggests, and then we'll have time for one or two more quick comments. He says there is something that can only be found in one place. It is a great treasure which may be called the fulfillment of existence. That's pretty deep language, Buber, for what we're talking about here, right? Where do we find meaning? Where do we find fulfillment? He says the place where this treasure can be found is in the place on which one stands. Wherever you are, there you are. But even more so, even more importantly, wherever you are, there God is. Wherever you are, their meaning is to be found. Don't think that it's somewhere else. Yes, you have to travel, you have to learn. Wherever we are, there we find meaning. There we make meaning, and there we are working toward becoming better versions of ourselves and making our world into the best world that it can possibly be. So we have time for Carrie and then Toby, and then I think we're out of time. Carrie, please.
I'm going to throw a wet blanket on this one. I'm thinking of my German Jewish dad, and he would have hated this story. He would say, this is the kind of Judaism that he hates, the superstitious Bubby Mises, that the only thing you should do is work hard and save your money. Don't look for the perfect stock. Certainly don't gamble. Just stick your nose to your grindstone and work.
Interesting. I think Buber might agree, by the way. Buber would suggest that you are building a life of meaning through the work that you are doing right here and now. And that's where the story ultimately leads him back, right? Where was the treasure? It was underneath his stove. Toby, last word on this.
It's pretty much what I said in the chat. I have known people who are Jew and Christian alike, who I believe do not have enough strength in their conviction or in their faith, and so they're afraid of stepping into a church or stepping into a synagogue because my neighbor across the street wouldn't even come into my house because she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she told me she's not allowed even to be in my home where no religious service was going on. I think it's a failing in the power of their faith. But I've heard Jews say exactly the same thing. I cannot step into a church. Why can't you? What's going to happen if you truly believe? Nothing's going to happen except you'll enjoy the artwork.
Thank you, Toby. Yeah, so may we see every moment as an opportunity for finding treasure. May we see every moment as an opportunity to find the divine, to experience what is sacred in this world. May we, and if there's hope to be found in this, I think it is in the hope that people can create and experience the sacred and the good wherever and whoever we are. There's nothing you need to be that is different from what you are, because our journey is always taking us more and more toward finding the treasure that's buried right underneath our own stove. So I will miss studying with all of you for the next couple of weeks. I hope you have a really good month of July. We will see one another in early August when we gather again to continue finding hope, finding tikvah through text, finding hope in our tradition. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon.